I'm Allison Matthews, 42, and for 12 years, I've been the heart of our family gatherings. I was arranging cranberry candles on my Thanksgiving table when my sister-in-law Rebecca called. "We're having Thanksgiving at our place this year," she said casually, like she wasn't demolishing tradition. When I offered to bring my signature dishes, there was a telling pause. "Actually, we think it would be better if Emma didn't come. The cousins find her disruptive." The phone nearly slipped from my hand as reality hit me. They were excluding my 6-year-old autistic daughter. Before I dive into how my perfect family shattered that day, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for someone you love against your own family. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how this holiday nightmare turned into the most important battle of my life. The tradition began after my mother-in-law Martha had her hip replacement 12 years ago. Until then, she'd been the undisputed queen of family gatherings. But when she couldn't manage the physical demands of hosting 20 people, I volunteered. I was eager to prove myself worthy of the Matthews family legacy, especially since I'd only been married to David for 3 years at that point. Those first few holidays, Martha hovered in my kitchen, adjusting my seasoning and rearranging my table settings. "The cranberry sauce should be in crystal, dear," she'd say. Or, "The Matthews family always puts the turkey at the head of the table." I swallowed my pride and learned. By the 3rd year, even Martha admitted my sage and apple stuffing was better than hers, though she'd never say it directly. I threw myself into becoming the perfect hostess. I kept detailed notes on everyone's preferences and dietary restrictions. Uncle Peter's shellfish allergy, Cousin Michael's hatred of green beans, my father-in-law Gerald's preference for dark meat. I maintained spreadsheets of seating arrangements to minimize family conflicts. I hand-wrote place cards with calligraphy. I polished the silver that had been David's grandmother's, even though it meant staying up until 2 a.m. the night before each gathering. David beamed with pride in those early years. "Look at my wife," he'd boast to his brother James. "Martha's met her match." He'd bring me a glass of wine as I mashed potatoes, kissing my neck and telling me I was the best thing that ever happened to the Matthews family. I felt like I'd found my purpose, creating this perfect bubble of holiday joy where everyone felt special. Then I got pregnant with Emma. The pregnancy was difficult. I was on bed rest for the last 2 months, but still coordinated Thanksgiving from my bedroom, directing David like a conductor as he followed my detailed instructions. "You're incredible," he'd said, as I checked off items on my hosting checklist from between my mountain of pillows. Emma was born in January, a beautiful, alert baby with David's blue eyes and my dark hair. For the first 2 years, she hit all her milestones. She was precocious, speaking in full sentences early. I'd wear her in a baby carrier as I prepared holiday meals, narrating everything I did. "Now Mommy's making Grandpa's favorite gravy," I'd tell her. "Someday you'll make it too." The changes were subtle at first. Emma stopped responding to her name consistently. She became fixated on patterns and routines, melting down if they were disrupted. At 3, after months of evaluations, we received her diagnosis: autism spectrum disorder. I cried for days, not because I loved her any less, but because I knew how hard the world could be for someone different. David took it hard. His family took it harder. "She'll grow out of it," Martha insisted for years, even as therapists and specialists became part of our daily routine. "Maybe if you hadn't worked so hard on those holiday gatherings while pregnant," Rebecca suggested once, when she thought I couldn't hear. "Children need discipline," James would say whenever Emma had a meltdown, shooting disapproving looks at David. Through it all, I kept hosting. Now my spreadsheets included notes about Emma's triggers and strategies to help her through gatherings. I created a quiet room where she could retreat when overwhelmed. I modified recipes to accommodate her sensory issues with food textures. I carefully explained to nieces and nephews why their cousins sometimes needed different rules. Most of the family tolerated these accommodations with tight smiles and meaningful glances. David's brother James and his wife Rebecca were the worst offenders. They had 3 neurotypical children: Perfect Taylor, Athletic Zachary, and Little Princess Lily, whom they paraded like show ponies. Rebecca never failed to highlight their achievements while asking pointed questions about Emma's progress. "Is she still doing that hand-flapping thing?" Zachary's teacher says that's a sure sign of developmental issues. Taylor got the lead in the school play. Does Emma participate in anything at her special school? David would change the subject, but he never directly confronted them. They don't mean anything by it, he'd say later. They just don't understand. The strain began to show as Emma got older. Holiday gatherings became increasingly tense. Last Christmas, Emma became overwhelmed by the noise and flashing lights from the new electronic toys the cousins received. Her meltdown disrupted the gift exchange. James made a show of taking his children to another room to continue celebrating in peace. David didn't say a word. Still, I persisted. I was the family peacekeeper, the holiday magician who could make everyone happy. I believed that if I just tried hard enough, made everything perfect enough, they would accept Emma as she was. I believed family meant unconditional love. I was exhausted, but I never let them see it. Every year, I sent everyone home with leftovers in monogrammed containers. Every year, I received thank you cards praising my hospitality. Every year, I convinced myself that next time would be better. Until that phone call from Rebecca, when the illusion finally shattered. The moment I hung up with Rebecca, I called David at work. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. "They don't want Emma at Thanksgiving," I said when he answered, not bothering with hello. "Rebecca just called to disinvite our daughter." I expected outrage, protective fury. The mama bear had awakened in me. Surely the papa bear would join. The silence on the line stretched for 3 heartbeats too long. "David, did you hear what I said? I'm in the middle of something, Allie." His voice was low, careful. "Can we talk about this when I get home?" "Talk about what? There's nothing to discuss. You're going to call your brother and tell him we're not coming if Emma isn't welcome." Another pause. "I think we should discuss this rationally when I get home." Ice formed in my stomach. "You knew," I whispered. "You already knew about this. Allie, please, tell me you didn't know your family was planning to exclude our daughter." "It's complicated." 3 syllables that detonated our marriage. David came home early that day, which should have been my first clue that something was deeply wrong. In 16 years of marriage, I could count on one hand the number of times he'd left work before 6 p.m. I was waiting in the living room, Emma safely at her weekly art therapy session. As soon as he walked in, I demanded, "How long have you known?" He sank into his armchair not beside me on the couch and loosened his tie. "James mentioned it a couple weeks ago." "Mentioned what, exactly?" "That they were thinking of hosting this year. To give you a break. And the part about our daughter not being welcome? When did that come up?" David looked away, studying the family portrait on the wall from 2 Christmases ago. We all wore red sweaters. Emma was having a good day, smiling at the camera. "It wasn't put that way." "How was it put, David?" "They suggested it might be easier for everyone if it was just adults this time." "All the other children were invited," I said flatly. Rebecca specifically mentioned the cousins. David ran a hand through his hair. "Emma struggles at these gatherings, Allie. You know that. Maybe it would be better for her to have a quiet day at home with one of us." "One of us?" I echoed. "Were you planning to stay home with her, David?" His silence was damning. "You were going to go without us. It wasn't a question." "It's just one holiday," David said, a pleading note in his voice. "It'll be easier for everyone. Everyone except your daughter. And me. You're blowing this out of proportion. Emma gets overwhelmed at these events anyway. Remember last Christmas? I remember your brother making a scene and you saying nothing. What was I supposed to say? Emma was screaming and throwing ornaments. She was having a meltdown because your mother kept touching her and Lily blasted that toy trumpet right next to her ear after being told not to. The argument escalated. I was shouting. David was shouting. Somewhere in the middle of it, he said the unforgivable. "Sometimes, just once, I'd like a normal family holiday." As soon as the words left his mouth, his eyes widened. He knew he'd crossed a line. "Allie, I didn't mean, don't." I held up a hand. "Just don't." I grabbed my phone, opened his text messages, and started scrolling. "What are you doing?" he asked, alarm rising in his voice. I found what I was looking for, a conversation with James from 3 weeks ago. I read aloud. "Rebecca and I think it's best if Emma sits this one out. The kids are still talking about last Christmas, and Mom gets upset. We'll make it up to her at Christmas maybe." I continued reading David's response. "I'll talk to Allie. She won't like it, but I see your point. My voice was eerily calm now. You didn't talk to me, though, did you? You were going to let Rebecca deliver the news. Like a coward. I was trying to find the right time. The right time to tell me our daughter isn't wanted by her own family? When would that be, David? While I was basting the turkey I've been planning to make for weeks. While I was polishing your grandmother's silver gravy boat, I scrolled further and found a group chat with all the adult family members, a chat I wasn't part of. Weeks of messages discussing the Emma situation. Martha suggesting a grown-up Thanksgiving would be lovely for a change. My own mother-in-law, who had taught me her secret pumpkin pie recipe. How long has this group chat existed? I asked. David's shoulders slumped. A couple years. And you've been discussing our daughter behind my back for how long? It's not like that. We talk about lots of things. Things like how to exclude a teenager from a family holiday without her overprotective mother making a scene. Just then, we heard the front door. Emma was home, her art therapist dropping her off. I wiped my eyes quickly, but Emma has always been perceptive in ways people don't expect. Mom crying, she said, her brow furrowed. Dad mad? No, honey, I lied. Mom just has allergies. And Dad and I were having a grown-up discussion. Emma looked between us, processing. Her emotional intelligence often surprised people who underestimated her. Family fight? She asked directly. David tried to salvage the situation. Everything's fine, Em. How was art today? But Emma was focused on me. She came to the couch and awkwardly patted my shoulder, physical touch on her terms, a gift she rarely offered. Don't be sad, Mom. I pulled her into a hug, careful not to squeeze too tight or touch the back of her neck, which bothered her. I'm okay, sweetheart. Why don't you show me what you made in art today? Later, after helping Emma with her evening routine, the precise sequence of activities that helped her transition to sleep, I lay awake in bed. David was in the guest room, his choice. I replayed years of family gatherings in my head, now seeing them through a different lens. The way conversations stopped when Emma and I entered rooms, the exaggerated patience in their voices when addressing her, the seating arrangements that increasingly isolated us at the far end of the table, the gradual reduction in Christmas presents for Emma while the other children's piles grew. I had been so determined to create perfect holidays, I'd overlooked the imperfect truth. Half of my family was merely tolerating us, and the other half, the half sleeping in the guest room, had chosen sides. And it wasn't ours. The morning after our fight, I took Emma to school and then sat in my car in the parking lot, scrolling through years of social media posts with new awareness. Rebecca's carefully curated family photos, always positioned in the center of group shots, while Emma and I were relegated to the edges if we appeared at all. Comments under holiday photos. Lovely peaceful gathering. On a Thanksgiving where Emma had been sick and we'd stayed home. A post from James 3 years ago about family values and supporting all children for his political fundraiser, with a photo of him coaching his son Zachary's baseball team. James had been making noises about running for city council for years, positioning himself as a family-first candidate. I began to notice a pattern in the timing of the worst friction with Emma. James's political ambitions had grown more serious last year, right around the time the family's tolerance for Emma seemed to diminish sharply. My phone rang. My mother. Allison, what's going on? David called your father very upset this morning. I laughed bitterly. Did he tell you why he's upset? He said you're overreacting about Thanksgiving arrangements. Overreacting? My voice rose. They uninvited my child, Mom. Your granddaughter. Well, not exactly uninvited. My mother's hedging tone told me everything. You knew. The betrayals were multiplying. How long have you known? Rebecca mentioned it when we had lunch last month. I thought it might be, well, honestly, darling, Emma does get overwhelmed at these big gatherings. So your solution is to exclude her? Instead of teaching the family how to accommodate her? No one's excluding her permanently. It's just one holiday. You and Emma could have your own special day together. I thought you might even appreciate a break from all the cooking. A break, I repeated flatly. You think I've spent 12 years cooking for this family because I couldn't think of anything better to do? That's not what I meant. What did you mean, Mom? That it's okay for my daughter to be cast aside because she's inconvenient? Would you have said that if Emma had a physical disability instead? That's different. No, it's not. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Emma is who she is. She's not going to become neurotypical to make family gatherings more comfortable. No one's asking her to change, Allison. No. They're just asking her not to exist in their presence. After hanging up with my mother, I drove aimlessly, trying to process this new reality. My phone kept buzzing. Martha and Gerald David's parents were calling. I finally answered on the third attempt. Allison, dear. Martha's voice was syrupy sweet. David tells us you're upset about Thanksgiving. My daughter has been uninvited from a family holiday. Yes, I'm upset. Now. It's not like that, Gerald chimed in, clearly on speakerphone. We thought it would be better for everyone. Everyone except Emma, I said. Emma too, dear, Martha insisted. You know how overwhelmed she gets. All the noise, all the people. She'd be happier at home anyway. That's not your decision to make. We're just trying to have a peaceful holiday, Gerald said. James has some important associates coming by after dinner. Potential backers for his campaign. And there it was. The real reason. Political backers, I repeated. So this isn't about Emma at all. It's about James not wanting to explain his autistic niece to potential donors. That's unfair, Allison, Martha said sharply. James has always been supportive. Supportive, how? By suggesting we try that quack doctor who claimed he could cure autism with vitamin injections. By constantly comparing Emma to his normal children. Those associates are very important for David too, Gerald said, ignoring my questions. James has arranged introductions that could mean a big promotion for David. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. David's promotion. The regional director position he's been angling for. James has put in a good word with the board members, Gerald confirmed, several of whom will be stopping by after Thanksgiving dinner. The cold calculation of it stunned me. My daughter was being erased because she might complicate David's career advancement and James's political aspirations. I have to go, I said, and hung up. When I arrived home, I searched through David's home office. In his desk drawer, I found documents about the regional director position. Emails between David and James discussing the right impression and family stability. A financial projection showing a significant salary increase. My husband had sold out our daughter for a promotion. The rest of the week was a blur of strained conversations and revelations. Family members choosing sides. Awkward phone calls where people tried to convince me I was overreacting, that it was just one holiday, that I was making things difficult. I had never felt so alone. 1 week before Thanksgiving, I was in the kitchen, stress baking something I'd always done to calm my nerves. Emma was at a special weekend program she enjoyed, giving me rare hours alone. David walked in, dressed for work despite it being Saturday. I need to talk to you, he said, leaning against the counter as I aggressively kneaded bread dough. So talk. I'm going to James and Rebecca's for Thanksgiving. My hands stilled. Excuse me? I have to be there, Allie. The board members are expecting me. Your daughter isn't invited, but you're going anyway. It's complicated. Stop saying that. I slammed my fist into the dough. It's not complicated. It's actually very simple. Our daughter, your daughter, is being excluded because she's autistic, and you're choosing to support the people excluding her. I'm trying to secure our future. This promotion means financial security for all of us, including Emma. So you're selling out your daughter for a paycheck. David's face hardened. That's not fair. I've worked 14 years at this company. This is my one shot at the regional position, and James is leveraging that to make you choose between your career and your daughter. No one's making me choose. That's exactly what's happening, and you've made your choice. I'm choosing our family's long-term security. Emma is our family. I know that, David shouted, his control finally breaking. Don't you think I know that? But sometimes I just want a normal holiday. Sometimes I want to sit through a meal without worrying about meltdowns or special foods, or explaining to everyone why my daughter isn't like their children. The silence that followed was deafening. David looked horrified at his own words. But it was too late. Allie, I didn't mean, get out, I whispered. Please, let me explain. Get out, I screamed, grabbing the nearest object, a ceramic bowl, and hurling it against the wall. It shattered, sending flour everywhere. David backed away. You need to calm down. I will not calm down. My husband just told me he's ashamed of his own daughter. I never said I was ashamed. You didn't have to say it. It's written all over your actions. That's when we heard it, a small, distressed sound from the doorway. Emma stood there, her program backpack still on her shoulders. The youth counselor, who had dropped her off, was awkwardly hovering behind her, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. Sorry, the young woman mumbled. The door was open, and Emma was eager to come in. Emma was staring at the scene, the shattered bowl, the flour dusting the floor, her parents facing off like combatants. Fighting about Emma? She asked directly, her voice small. No, honey, I started. But Emma shook her head. Don't lie, Emma knows. Dad doesn't want Emma for Thanksgiving. David stepped toward her. That's not true, Em. It's just a complicated grown-up situation. Emma backed away from him. Dad wants normal. Her voice was flat, but her eyes were brimming with tears, a rare and devastating sight. Emma, not normal. Emma knows. She turned and ran up the stairs. The sound of her bedroom door slamming was like a gunshot. The counselor made a hasty exit, and I turned to David with cold fury. Are you satisfied now? She heard you. She heard every word. David looked shattered. I'll go talk to her. No, you've said enough. I moved to block his path. You're going to leave this house right now and give her space. And then you're going to figure out where your priorities actually lie. After David left, I went upstairs and sat outside Emma's door. I could hear her inside, rocking and reciting the solar system facts she used to self-soothe. Jupiter is the largest planet. Jupiter has 79 moons. Jupiter has a great red spot. I waited until her voice steadied before knocking gently. Emma, can I come in? No response, but no rejection either. I slowly opened the door. Emma was sitting in her weighted blanket nest in the corner, hugging her stuffed Saturn. Her eyes were red but dry. I'm sorry you heard that fight, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed, giving her space. Dad doesn't want Emma, she said matter-of-factly. Dad loves you very much, I said automatically, then stopped myself. Emma deserved better than platitudes. Dad is struggling right now. He's not making good choices. Because Emma is different. Yes, but being different isn't bad. Others think it's bad. I couldn't argue with that. Some people don't understand different. That's their failure, not yours. Emma processed this. Family doesn't want Emma for Thanksgiving. Some family members are being very foolish right now, I said carefully. But you and I will have our own Thanksgiving, with people who love us exactly as we are. Who? It was a good question. Who was left? I spent the night sitting on my bedroom floor, surrounded by holiday decorations I'd pulled from the attic. 12 years of accumulated table settings, centerpieces, custom napkins. With methodical rage, I filled bag after bag for donation. The Matthews family Thanksgiving table runner. The Pilgrim salt and pepper shakers Martha had given me. The embroidered napkins with each family member's initials. Around midnight, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my neighbor Sophia on the porch, holding a bottle of wine. I saw your lights on, she said, and what looked like a purge in progress through your window. Thought you might need this. Sophia and I weren't close, just neighborhood friendly, but the simple act of kindness broke through my numb rage. I burst into tears. Somehow, we ended up sitting on my kitchen floor, surrounded by holiday detritus, as I poured out the whole ugly story. Sophia listened without interruption, occasionally refilling my glass. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. My brother has Down syndrome, she finally said. Every year until I was 16, we spent Christmas with my dad's family. Every year, they'd suggest John would be happier staying home with a sitter. Every year, my parents refused. She took a sip of wine. The year I was 16, my grandmother offered my parents money, actual cash, to leave John with a sitter for Christmas dinner. Said it would be her gift to the family. What happened? I asked. My mother threw the money in her face and walked out. We never spent another holiday with that side of the family again. Sophia smiled sadly. Best thing that ever happened to us. We started our own traditions, invited friends who accepted John. Those became the holidays I treasure. That night, I called Jill, my best friend since college, who lived 3 states away. Despite the late hour, she answered immediately. I've been worried about you, she said. David called me. My heart sank. What did he say? That you're overreacting about Thanksgiving and asked me to talk sense into you. Jill's voice hardened, so I told him to go to hell. Fresh tears sprang to my eyes. You did? Of course I did. What kind of garbage family excludes a child from Thanksgiving? And what kind of father lets them? For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of validation. I think my marriage is over, Jill. Honey, if he's choosing those people over his daughter, your marriage has been over for a while. You just didn't know it yet. I don't know what to do next. Document everything, Jill said immediately. Every text, every email, every call. If you end up in a custody battle, you'll need evidence that he was willing to exclude Emma from family events. You think it could come to that? I hope not. But protect yourself and Emma now, just in case. After hanging up, I discovered David had withdrawn $5,000 from our joint account that afternoon. Another betrayal, another sign that the man I married was gone if he had ever truly existed. The next day, I called Dr. Klein, Emma's therapist, and scheduled an emergency appointment. I sat in her calm, neutral office, tissues balled in my fist, and laid out everything that had happened. I'm worried about what this is doing to Emma, I concluded. She already heard David say he wanted a normal holiday. Dr. Klein's expression remained professional, but I could see the anger in her eyes. That's deeply concerning. Children with autism often already struggle with feelings of not belonging. To have that confirmed by a parent, what do I do? How do I protect her? First, maintain as much stability and routine as possible. Emma needs to know that regardless of what's happening with extended family, her home with you remains secure. And David? Dr. Klein chose her words carefully. It might be beneficial for David to attend some sessions, both with Emma and separately. This is a critical juncture in their relationship. He's still planning to attend Thanksgiving without us. Then you'll need to be very clear with Emma about what's happening. No sugarcoating or white lies. Explain in concrete terms why David is making this choice, without demonizing him, but also without excusing the behavior. I nodded, absorbing this. What about the extended family? Should I try to make them understand how damaging this is? In an ideal world, yes. But your priority has to be Emma's emotional well-being, not educating people who've already shown they're unwilling to learn. Next, I met with Miss Patterson, Emma's special education teacher. I hadn't planned to involve the school, but Miss Patterson had noticed Emma's withdrawal over the past week. She's stopped participating in group activities, Miss Patterson told me in her classroom after school hours. And she had a meltdown yesterday when another student mentioned Thanksgiving plans. I explained the situation, feeling a fresh wave of anger at how far the damage had already spread. Miss Patterson's reaction surprised me. Unfortunately, this isn't unusual. I've seen many families fracture over holiday expectations when a child has special needs. That's horrible. It is. But what concerns me is that Emma has mentioned other incidents that suggest this exclusion isn't entirely new. What do you mean? Miss Patterson consulted her notes. Emma told our counselor that cousins don't want to play with Emma at Christmas, and Grandma says Emma needs to try harder to be good. Each word was a knife twist. She never told me. Children often try to protect their parents, especially when they sense tension. Emma is more perceptive than people give her credit for. That evening, as I was helping Emma with homework, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. It's Taylor. Uncle James took my phone, but I'm using my friend's. I think what they're doing to Emma is wrong. I have screenshots. Taylor was James and Rebecca's oldest daughter, 16 like Emma, but living in a completely different world of high school popularity and achievement. I hadn't expected any support from that quarter. Minutes later, photos of a family group chat appeared. Conversations spanning months, discussing Emma as a problem to be managed. Rebecca complaining that Emma's presence ruins the holiday atmosphere. James expressing concern about how Emma might be perceived by important connections. Most painful were the messages from David, making weak protests but ultimately acquiescing. "We'll figure something out for Emma," he'd written after James first suggested a children-free Thanksgiving. Not a firm rejection. Not a defense of his daughter. Just passive acceptance. I was still reeling from this when my sister Heather called. We weren't especially close. She lived across the country and was 7 years younger, in a different life phase entirely. But her voice was tight with fury. Mom just called me about Thanksgiving drama. Is it true they uninvited Emma? Yes, those absolute bastards. Heather rarely swore. I'm coming for Thanksgiving. To your house, not that shit show at James and Rebecca's. You don't have to. I absolutely do have to. I've always thought Rebecca was manipulating everyone, and this proves it. Emma is the sweetest kid, and they're treating her like she has some contagious disease. David's going to their dinner, I said, the words still bitter on my tongue. Then David's an idiot who doesn't deserve either of you. Heather's bluntness was oddly comforting. I've already booked my flight. I'll be there Tuesday. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding. I joined an online support group for parents of children with autism. I'd always prided myself on handling everything independently, on not needing help. Now I poured out my story to strangers on the internet, feeling both vulnerable and relieved. The responses flooded in stories so similar to mine it was eerie. Parents who'd been excluded from family events, whose children had been treated as burdens, whose marriages had cracked under the pressure of divided loyalties. They offered practical advice, names of family attorneys who specialized in special needs children, resources for single parents of children with autism, strategies for creating new holiday traditions, book recommendations about teaching children with autism to understand complex family dynamics. I stayed up until 3 a.m., reading, researching, planning. For the first time since Rebecca's call, I felt something other than hurt and rage. I felt purposeful, prepared. The next morning, Emma asked me a question that broke my heart and strengthened my resolve in equal measure. Why doesn't family want me? I sat beside her, careful to give her the personal space she needed. Some people don't understand that different isn't bad. They want everyone to be the same because it's easier for them. Dad wants easier. I couldn't deny it. Dad is making bad choices right now because he's afraid of hard things. Is Mom afraid? Sometimes, I admitted. But I'm more afraid of teaching you that you should hide who you are to make other people comfortable. Emma processed this with her characteristic deep thought. Then she said something that became my North Star for everything that followed. Emma is Emma, not going to be not Emma. That's right, I said, fighting tears. And Emma is perfect exactly as she is. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and cold. In years past, I would have been up since 5 a.m., turkey already in the oven, pies cooling on racks, table perfectly set. This year, I slept until 8, a rare luxury, and came downstairs to find Emma already up, carefully arranging cereal boxes by color. Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart, I said. Happy Emma and Mom Thanksgiving, she replied, with the small smile that always melted my heart. We had decided to make all her favorite foods instead of traditional Thanksgiving fare. Emma had sensory issues with most holiday foods anyway. The mixed textures of stuffing, the sliminess of gravy, the stringiness of turkey. Today we would have chicken nuggets, the dinosaur-shaped ones, macaroni and cheese, spiral noodles only, steamed broccoli, no touching the other foods, and chocolate pudding cups. I was setting out the ingredients when the doorbell rang. Heather stood there with an enormous bouquet of fall flowers. Reinforcements have arrived, she announced, wrapping me in a hug before carefully asking Emma if she wanted a high five. Emma considered, then offered her elbow for a gentle bump instead, her preferred greeting. Perfect elbow bump, Heather praised. I brought something for our feast. She held up a bag from the specialty bakery across town. Berry cheesecake. No crust, pureed smooth, just how you like it, Em. Emma's face lit up. Best aunt. Moments later, another car pulled up. Sophia from next door, carrying a casserole dish. Hope I'm not intruding, she said tentatively. I made mac and cheese, the spiral kind Emma mentioned she likes. Before I could respond, another car arrived. Jill, who had apparently driven through the night from 3 states away, looking exhausted but determined. You didn't have to come, I said, hugging her fiercely. Like hell I didn't. No one messes with my goddaughter's Thanksgiving. By noon, we had an impromptu gathering of allies. Emma was initially overwhelmed by the unexpected visitors, but settled once she understood they were there to support her. She retreated to her quiet corner occasionally, but kept returning to the kitchen where we were preparing our unconventional feast. My phone had been buzzing all morning. David, asking if we could talk. James, remarkably, checking if I'd reconsidered and might be joining them after all. My mother, sending guilt-laden texts about family unity. I silenced it all. At 2 p.m., we sat down to our mismatched meal. No formal dining room, just the kitchen table with its everyday placemat. No crystal glasses or silver serving dishes. Just everyone's favorite cups and plates. No seating chart. Just people who wanted to be together. Heather raised her glass. To chosen family, the people who love us as we are. We were midway through our meal when a car door slammed outside. David stood on our doorstep, looking haggard in a dress shirt and tie, his good suit coat hanging awkwardly on his frame. I met him at the door, not inviting him in. "What are you doing here? Can we talk privately?" He glanced past me at the kitchen table, clearly surprised to see our guests. "Anything you need to say can be said in front of Emma and our friends." David's jaw tightened. "Allie, please, this is between us." "No, it's not. You made it about everyone when you discussed excluding our daughter in a family group chat." He flinched. "How did you?" "Taylor has a conscience, apparently. Unlike her parents." David closed his eyes briefly. "I've made some mistakes. That doesn't begin to cover it. I didn't go to their dinner," he said quietly. "I couldn't do it." For a moment, hope flickered, but it died quickly when he continued. "I told them I needed time to convince you. James is furious. The board members are asking questions. So you're not here because you realize they're wrong. You're here to try to fix things for your career." David's expression confirmed it before he could deny it. "It's more complicated." "Stop saying that." I was beyond careful management of my emotions. "It's not complicated. It's actually very simple. You chose your brother and your career over your daughter. I'm trying to provide for our family." "No, you're trying to preserve your image of a perfect family. The one where Emma's autism is an inconvenient fact to be hidden away." "That's not true." "It is true," came a steady voice from behind me. Jill had joined us at the door. "David, I've known you for 15 years. You've been ashamed of Emma's diagnosis since day one." "I have not." "Yes, you have," Heather chimed in, appearing at my other side. "You cringe when she stims in public. You make excuses for why she can't attend events. You never correct your family when they make ignorant comments about autism." David looked trapped. "You don't understand the pressure." "Oh, I understand pressure," I said. "I understand being the one who's had to fight for Emma's accommodations at school while you worked late. I understand being the one who's researched therapies and medications and coping strategies while you nodded along without reading a single article. I understand being the one who's had to smile through your family's thinly veiled criticism for years. I've been trying to balance everything." "Balance?" Jill scoffed. "There's no balance when it comes to protecting your child. You're either all in or you're not." David's face flushed. "This isn't fair. I love Emma." "Love isn't enough," I said. "She needs advocacy, protection, unconditional acceptance. Where has that been?" "I don't know how to do this," David shouted, finally breaking. "I don't know how to choose between my daughter and everything else I've worked for. James has connections that could secure Emma's future financially. Don't you understand? I'm trying to make sure she's taken care of. Emma needs parents who stand up for her now, not a trust fund later." "What do you want from me, Allie?" "I want you to be the father she deserves. I want you to call out your family's ableism instead of enabling it. I want you to put Emma first, not your career, not your brother's politics, not your parents' comfort." David looked at me, then passed me to the kitchen where Emma sat with Sophia, carefully separating her broccoli from her macaroni. His expression crumpled. "I don't know if I can be what she needs," he whispered. And there it was. The truth. Finally. "Then you've made your choice," I said quietly. "We're not a package deal anymore, David. You can't have the pretend perfect family you want while denying the real family you have." He stood there, devastated, but still not saying the words I needed to hear. Not running to Emma to tell her she was perfect and loved. Not promising to stand against anyone who suggested otherwise. "I think you should go," I said. David looked like he might argue, then nodded once. "We need to talk about next steps." "Yes, we do. But not today. Today is for Emma and the people who accept her completely." As he walked back to his car, shoulders slumped, I felt no triumph, only grief for what should have been, and determination for what would be. We returned to our mismatched Thanksgiving feast. Emma looked up as I sat back down. Dad left again? Yes, honey. She nodded. Processing. Dad choosing wrong thing. Mom choosing Emma. I reached across the table, palm up, offering contact on her terms. After a moment, she placed her hand in mine, the briefest touch before withdrawing. Always choosing Emma, I promised. The days after Thanksgiving unfolded with surreal precision. Having shattered my illusions of family, I found clarity in the rubble. My phone became a battleground of damage control attempts. Rebecca texted first. All saccharine concern. David seems very upset. I think you misunderstood our intentions about Thanksgiving. I didn't respond. The screenshots from Taylor had shown their intentions with perfect clarity. Martha called next. Allison, dear, this has all gotten out of hand. No one meant to exclude Emma permanently. We simply thought one quieter holiday might be refreshing for everyone. Refreshing, I repeated. That's an interesting word for family betrayal. Now, that's a bit dramatic. Is it? Would you use that word if Emma had a physical disability? Would it be refreshing to exclude a child in a wheelchair because ramps are inconvenient? Martha huffed. That's completely different. It's exactly the same. You want Emma to be something she's not, and when she can't meet your neurotypical expectations, you'd rather not see her at all. We love Emma. Love requires acceptance. You want compliance. The most stunning attempt came from James himself, arriving at my door unannounced the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I met him on the porch, refusing to let him inside where Emma might overhear. Allison, this situation has become untenable. He stood there in his designer overcoat, every inch the successful businessman and aspiring politician. David's staying at a hotel. Mother is beside herself. You've turned a simple logistical decision into a family crisis. A logistical decision, I repeated. Is that what we're calling the systematic exclusion of a child with autism? James had the decency to look uncomfortable. No one was excluding Emma systematically. It was one holiday gathering with important business contacts present. You were embarrassed to have your autistic niece at your political networking event. That's unfair. What's unfair is teaching my daughter that her worth depends on her neurological conformity. James shifted tactics. Look, I understand you're upset. But David is caught in the middle here. His career is at a critical juncture, a juncture where he needs to choose between his daughter and his ambitions. That's not a juncture, James. That's a moral failure. We can work this out. Come to Christmas dinner. Bring Emma. We'll make accommodations. I laughed bitterly. You still don't get it. This isn't about an invitation now. This is about years of subtle rejection that finally became explicit. You don't get to walk that back with a Christmas invitation. James's professional facade cracked. You're being unreasonable. No, I'm finally being clear about what I will and won't accept for my daughter. David says you're talking about divorce. That's between David and me. Do you really want to tear this family apart? I looked him directly in the eyes. This family tore itself apart the moment it decided my daughter was optional. After James left, I called Heather, who had returned home but remained my staunchest ally. James came by for a little intimidation session, I told her. What did Captain Corporate want? To remind me of David's critical career juncture and how unreasonable I'm being. Translation. His political aspirations are taking a hit from family drama. Exactly. What's your next move? Heather asked. It was time to tell her the plan I'd been quietly implementing. I've consulted with a family therapist about how to support Emma through this transition. I've spoken with a lawyer about separation terms. I've documented everything, the texts, emails, witness statements from Thanksgiving. You're really doing this. I have to. David showed me who he is, and more importantly, who he isn't. The family therapist, Dr. Levine, had been blunt during our consultation. This kind of rejection can be devastating for children with autism, who already struggle with social belonging. The fact that Emma overheard her father expressing shame about her makes this particularly damaging. Can our marriage recover from this? I'd asked, more out of obligation than hope. That depends on whether David is willing to acknowledge the harm done and commit to significant changes. Not just in words, but consistent actions over time. I'd nodded. already knowing the answer. The David who had stood on our doorstep on Thanksgiving wasn't a man on the verge of transformation. He was a man clinging to the path of least resistance. The lawyer, Miss Perez, specialized in family law cases involving children with special needs. Her office walls were covered with thank you cards from families she'd helped. The good news, she told me, reviewing my documents, is that you have extensive evidence of your husband prioritizing his extended family's comfort over Emma's well-being. Judges take a dim view of parents who exclude their special needs children from family events. I don't want to use Emma as a weapon in a custody battle. This isn't about weaponizing her condition. It's about demonstrating which parent is truly advocating for her best interests. She'd helped me understand the financial entanglements I needed to address. The joint accounts David had already begun draining, the business investments with James that might complicate asset division, the additional costs of raising a child with autism that needed to be factored into support calculations. While I was busy securing our future, Heather had been conducting her own investigation into the past. Did you know Rebecca was asked to leave her position at the Children's Museum 5 years ago? She told me during one of our daily check-in calls. What? No. She said she left to focus on the kids. According to my friend who volunteers there, Rebecca got into a huge argument with a staff member about accommodations for a group of autistic children. She complained they were disrupting the experience for normal children. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Rebecca's hostility toward Emma had roots deeper than holiday inconvenience. There's more, Heather continued. Remember 3 years ago when James and Rebecca suddenly stopped attending church? They said they found a congregation closer to home. My source says they left after the church started a ministry program for families with special needs children. Rebecca apparently objected to having those children in the regular Sunday school classes. The pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't about one Thanksgiving dinner. This was about a systematic rejection of neurodiversity that had been allowed to fester unchallenged. Through all of this, Emma showed remarkable resilience. Her routine had been disrupted by David's absence, but we established new patterns. Dr. Klein worked with her twice weekly. Her special education team provided additional support at school. One evening, as I helped her with her evening routine, Emma asked the question I'd been dreading. Is Dad coming back? I sat on the edge of her bed, honoring our commitment to honesty. I don't know, sweetheart. Dad and I are trying to figure out what's best for everyone. She nodded, processing. Dad still loves Emma? My heart cracked. Yes, Dad loves you very much. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that hurt the people they love. Big mistakes or little mistakes. I considered how to explain something so complex in terms she could understand. Remember how we talk about big feelings and little feelings? She nodded. This is like a big feeling mistake. It might take a long time to fix. Emma thought about this. Sometimes Emma can't fix mistakes. Sometimes just make new better thing instead. Out of the mouths of babes. That's very wise, Emma. Sometimes that's exactly what we have to do. 2 weeks before Christmas, David called with an unexpected request. My parents are both sick with that flu that's going around, he said, voice heavy with concern. Dad's particularly bad. They're asking for Emma. I think we should set aside our differences temporarily. Family, emergency, and all. My first instinct was suspicion, but I tried to be fair. Are they in the hospital? No, just bedridden at home. Mom says Dad's been asking for his granddaughter. I hesitated. Despite everything, I didn't want to use Emma as a pawn in our conflict. And if Gerald was truly ill, I'll talk to Emma, I decided. If she's comfortable with a short visit, we could come by tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, Allie. David sounded genuinely relieved. I knew you wouldn't let personal issues get in the way of family in a crisis. I should have recognized the manipulation in those words. The next day, Emma and I arrived at Martha and Gerald's large colonial house, the one where so many holiday gatherings had taken place over the years. David met us in the driveway, looking tired but freshly shaved. Thanks for coming, he said, leaning in as if to kiss my cheek before catching himself. They're in the living room. Dad's having a good moment, fever's down. I squeezed Emma's hand. Remember what we practiced? Short visit, and you can signal me anytime you need a break. Emma nodded solemnly, clutching the get well card she'd made. As we entered the living room, my suspicions instantly crystallized. Martha and Gerald sat on the sofa, looking perfectly healthy. James and Rebecca occupied armchairs flanking them. On the love seat sat a man I didn't recognize, wearing an expensive suit and a practiced sympathetic expression. "What is this?" I demanded, stopping in the doorway. "Allison, Emma, come in," Martha said warmly, as if the past weeks hadn't happened. "We've all been so worried about you. You said they were sick," I hissed at David. "They were feeling under the weather," he hedged. But this seemed like an important opportunity for all of us to talk. "Opportunity," I repeated flatly. James stood, taking charge as usual. "Allison, this is Dr. Winters. He's an expert in residential therapeutic programs for children with special needs." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "Residential programs? Please, sit down," the stranger said with practiced authority. "I understand this is a difficult conversation, but many families find that specialized residential care provides the structure and support that children like Emma need to thrive." I tightened my grip on Emma's hand. "My daughter is thriving in her home. With me." Of course, Dr. Winters nodded condescendingly. "But adolescence presents new challenges for children on the spectrum. Our program offers comprehensive therapeutic support, educational opportunities tailored to special needs, and most importantly, consistency." "Consistency?" I echoed, looking directly at David. "As opposed to the inconsistency of a father who excludes his daughter from family gatherings?" David flushed. "Allie, please. Dr. Winters has extensive experience. You want to send our daughter away." "No one's saying that," James interjected smoothly. "This would be a therapeutic placement. Emma would come home for visits. It's about getting her the specialized care she needs, care she's already receiving, care I've arranged and overseen while the rest of you were busy being embarrassed by her existence." Rebecca finally spoke, her voice dripping with false concern. "Allison, we've all noticed how exhausted you've been lately. The strain of being Emma's primary caregiver." "Stop." My voice cut through the room like a blade. "Do not pretend this intervention is about my well-being or Emma's. This is about removing an inconvenient child from your perfect family picture." "That's unfair," Martha protested. "Is it? You lied about being sick to lure us here. You ambushed us with a residential placement specialist without any warning. You're discussing my daughter's future, as if she isn't sitting right here, listening to every word." I turned to Emma, who was watching the scene with wide, comprehending eyes. "Emma, what do you think about what these people are suggesting?" The room fell silent. They'd never asked for her opinion, never considered her an active participant in her own life. "They want Emma to go away," she said simply, "because Emma makes hard feelings for everyone." David made a pained sound. "That's not it, Em." "Yes, it is," she interrupted, a rare assertion. "I know. I'm different. Different is hard for you." She turned to Dr. Winters. "Emma knows about places for different kids. We learn in social group. Some good, some bad. Emma stays with Mom." The clarity of her understanding and self-advocacy struck me like lightning. This child, whom they all underestimated, saw through their manipulations with perfect clarity. Dr. Winters recovered professionally. "It's good that you're informed, Emma. But these decisions are complex and need to be made by the adults who care for you. I am Emma's primary caregiver," I stated, ice in my voice. "And I have full physical custody at present. No placement decisions will be made without my consent, which I categorically withhold." I turned to David, who couldn't meet my eyes. "You researched residential placements behind my back. We just wanted information. Information you could have sought with me, your co-parent, instead of your brother and his wife." James stepped forward. "This hostility isn't productive, Allison. We're trying to find solutions that work for everyone." "No, you're trying to find solutions that work for you. Emma and I are inconvenient problems to be solved, not family members to be supported." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, setting it on the coffee table. "I've been recording this entire conversation, by the way. My lawyer suggested it might be prudent, given the pattern of deception." David blanched. "You're recording us?" "Single-party consent state," I confirmed. "Completely legal," Martha gasped. "You came here planning to trap us." "No, I came here because I was told my daughter's grandparents were ill. You're the ones who set a trap. I simply came prepared. Rebecca's perfect facade finally cracked. This is exactly the problem. Everything has to revolve around Emma's needs. What about the rest of the family? What about our children who can't have a normal relationship with their cousin because she's constantly having meltdowns? Rebecca, James warned. But it was too late. No, I'm tired of tiptoeing around this. We've all been enabling Allison's obsession with Emma's specialness for years. There's a reason we didn't want her at Thanksgiving. She ruins every holiday with her behaviors. Emma flinched beside me, but held her ground. Thank you, Rebecca, I said calmly. For finally being honest, I stood, taking Emma's hand. This meeting is over. David, I'll have my lawyer contact you about formalizing our separation and custody arrangements. David stood too, panic in his eyes. Allie, wait, no more waiting. No more hoping you'll become the father Emma deserves. You've made your choice repeatedly, and it's never been her. We walked toward the door, but Emma suddenly pulled away and turned back to face the room. Emma knows you don't want me, she said clearly. Emma always knew. It's okay. Emma doesn't want you either anymore. The simplicity and dignity of her declaration left them speechless. As we walked to the car, David ran after us. Allie, please. This isn't what I wanted. I turned to face him one last time. What did you want, David? A daughter who doesn't exist? A family that values image over love? You can't have both. I love her, he said, his voice breaking. I love you both. Love without acceptance isn't love at all. It's just control in disguise. I helped Emma into the car and drove away from the house, from David, from the family that had never truly been ours. In the rearview mirror, I could see him standing in the driveway, a man who had lost everything that mattered while clutching desperately at things that didn't. Emma was quiet for several minutes before she said, Mom, sad? Yes, honey. Mom's sad, but also relieved. Why relieved? I thought about how to explain it, because now we know exactly where we stand. No more pretending. No more hoping for something that isn't going to happen. That's hard, but it's also freeing. Emma nodded slowly. No more pretending Emma is not Emma. Exactly. No more pretending. 6 months later, on Easter Sunday, I stood in the kitchen of our new townhouse, arranging deviled eggs on a platter. The space was smaller than our old suburban home, but it felt more genuinely ours. Emma's artwork hung on the walls, not hidden away in her bedroom, but celebrated throughout our living space. The divorce had been finalized with surprising speed, largely because David stopped fighting once he realized how much evidence I had compiled. The family therapist's documentation of Emma's regression after Thanksgiving, the recording of the intervention, Taylor's screenshots of the family group chat, my meticulous records of every accommodation I'd implemented over the years while David remained passive. In the end, he agreed to my terms: primary physical custody with me, generous financial support, and strictly supervised visitation until he completed intensive family therapy with Emma. Whether that relationship could ever be fully repaired remained an open question, but at least he'd finally acknowledged the damage done. Eggs go on blue plate, Emma reminded me, entering the kitchen in her favorite Easter sweater soft fabric. No tags, loose around the collar just how she liked it. You're right. My mistake. I transferred them to the correct plate. One of our new traditions was color-coding holiday foods for Emma's visual processing. She surveyed the kitchen with satisfaction. 3 guests coming: Heather, Sophia, Jill, and Dr. Klein and Miss Patterson, I added. They confirmed this morning. Emma processed this change to her expected guest list. A year ago, it might have triggered anxiety. Now she simply nodded. 5 guests. Need more napkins. The doorbell rang, and Emma went to answer it. Another new development. With fewer sensory triggers in our carefully designed home and fewer anxiety-inducing people in our lives, she'd grown more comfortable with certain social interactions. Aunt Heather, I heard her announce. Easter shoes are purple. They sure are, kiddo, my sister responded, having learned that Emma appreciated these concrete observations more than abstract compliments. Our little home soon filled with our chosen family. Sophia brought her brother John, who immediately bonded with Emma over their shared interest in astronomy. Jill came with homemade allergy-friendly cupcakes, each one decorated with Emma's favorite patterns. Dr. Klein and Miss Patterson arrived together, bringing educational games that cleverly disguised therapeutic exercises as holiday fun. The final confrontation with David had come during divorce proceedings, when he'd finally broken down in the mediator's office. "I didn't want any of this," he'd sobbed. "I just wanted things to be easier." "Easier for whom?" I'd asked, not unkindly. "For everyone. For Emma, for you, for me, but especially for you." He'd looked up, ready to deny it, then slumped in defeat. "I don't know how to be the father she needs." "You never tried to learn," I pointed out. "I offered you books, support groups, therapy options. You always had an excuse." "I was afraid," he finally admitted. "Afraid I'd fail her. Afraid I'd make her worse somehow. So I let you handle everything while I focused on work, where I felt competent. And when your brother and his wife started excluding her, I told myself they just needed time to understand. That it wasn't worth fighting about. It was worth fighting for your daughter." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know that now. Too late." I'd felt a strange mixture of vindication and grief. It doesn't have to be too late for you to have a relationship with Emma, but it will never be the same, and it will never include me. The news about Rebecca and James had given me no pleasure, despite Heather's gleeful updates. Their perfect family image had indeed begun to crumble. Taylor, disgusted by her parents' behavior, had become increasingly rebellious. She'd started volunteering at an autism support center, pointedly bringing home literature about acceptance and neurodiversity. James's political ambitions had stalled when whispers about the family drama reached his potential backers. Apparently, excluding your autistic niece from holiday gatherings didn't play well with voters concerned about disability rights. Most surprising was my mother Ruth's evolution. After months of strained communication, she'd shown up at our door with tears in her eyes. "I failed you both," she'd said simply. "I was so worried about keeping the peace that I forgot my most important job was protecting my child and grandchild." Her journey toward genuine acceptance was ongoing, but she was trying reading books about autism, attending support group meetings, asking Emma directly about her preferences instead of assuming. As I arranged the Easter ham, for the guests, Emma would have her preferred chicken nuggets. I reflected on all we'd lost and gained. We'd lost the illusion of a perfect extended family, but gained the reality of genuine support. We'd lost the spacious suburban house, but gained a home where Emma never had to mask or suppress her authentic self. Heather appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Need help?" "I think we're almost ready." I checked the oven timer. 5 more minutes. Emma's teaching John and Dr. Klein some complicated hand game. "It's pretty impressive." I smiled. "She's been practicing." Her occupational therapist suggested activities that combine fine motor skills with social interaction. Heather leaned against the counter. "You know what I was thinking about this morning? Last Thanksgiving, how devastated you were. And now, look at this." She gestured around us. "You've created something beautiful from something awful." "We created it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done this alone." "Yes, you could have," she said firmly. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." When we gathered around the table, our mismatched, neurodivergent, friendly, unconventional Easter celebration, I asked Emma if she wanted to say anything before we ate. She thought carefully, then said, "Family is people who love Emma being Emma. Thank you for being real family." As conversation and laughter flowed around us, I watched my daughter sitting comfortably in her weighted vest, her food carefully arranged, not touching on her plate, occasionally stimming when excited, and saw her truly relaxed and accepted for perhaps the first time in her life. The journey had been painful. The loss is real. But sitting here in our new reality, I knew we'd found our way to something far more precious than the perfect holiday gatherings I'd once so desperately tried to create. Sometimes family is who you choose. And sometimes, love means refusing to choose between the people you love because real love never asks you to. Emma caught my eye across the table and gave me her small, perfect smile. "Mom, happy now?" "Yes, Emma. Mom is very happy now." I hope this story resonated with those of you who've had to make difficult choices to protect someone you love. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and what was right for you or your child? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you found Emma and Allison's journey meaningful, Please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. And remember to share with anyone who might need to hear that sometimes walking away from toxic situations isn't failure. It's the first step toward building something better. Thank you for being part of our chosen family today.